Okay, we had chapter 13, and our discussion question was to examine the case, the San Antonio Independent School District versus Rodriguez, discuss the main points of emphasis of the case, and then research and discuss strategies used by the plaintiffs who challenged state funding formulas since the Rodriguez case. Okay, so, the San Antonio Independent School District versus Rodriguez, what it was is Mexican-American parents whose children attended urban schools. They filed a class action equity suit on behalf of minority children throughout the state who were poor and resided in a school community that had a low property tax base. The court held that the Texas finance system was unconstitutional under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. The state appealed. The U.S. Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, reversed the ruling by the district court. There was then discrepancies created by the funding system that were then noted by the court. And then due to those discrepancies that they did note, the courts decided that the Texas funding system did not work to the advantage of any class or group, since the disadvantages occurred only between the districts themselves. So essentially, this decision just removed litigation from the federal courts in the public school finance area. And another thing that came of it was that state courts became the court of choice for those types of things. And I guess one other thing we could probably add is that this case that the Texas case did not interfere with that fundamental right, since education is not guaranteed by the Constitution.
This is where I take over, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, strategies used by the plaintiffs, I guess, was just that it was a poor community that didn't have equal access to certain materials as other districts could just be the outcomes of their education was not as high because of poor teacher quality, or not as good of teacher quality, appropriate instructional materials that the district had. And typically children that are in poor communities tend to earn lower test scores and have lower graduation rates than those that are in larger income areas.
And that kind of leads into what we mentioned earlier in our chapter overview about the majority of the funding comes from property taxes. And I guess it was being challenged about, the equity, and most states don't define equity the same way. And so since they have not come to a conclusion, there's still lots of challenges regarding like equity and funding and how that looks. And so litigation has occurred in 49 states kind of regarding public school finance challenges, like since the Rodriguez case, and that state courts are virtually even in their rulings, and that half support the plaintiff and the other half supporting the defendant states. It's kind of the outcomes of the cases. And I guess maybe once they can define equity and what that actually means, those rulings might look different. But right now it looks like it's even, half to the plaintiffs and half to the defendant states. So I believe that's everything.
We covered it.